I believe that designs can create a better world. A little challenge to you and to Dana. Please tell me, you can identify the colors you can see here. For example, this one, black, this the other
Green.
one, green. I imagine that you spend a lot of seconds to try to identify the correct color, but in fact, this is the real colors. We are talking 1 in 12 men is colorblind, 1 in 200 female is also colorblind. The society forgot that exist people who confuse colors.
This is the What Comes Next podcast with your hosts, Keely Catwells and Dana Randall, where we use real stories to explore the future of accessibility, inclusion, and the ideas shaping what comes next. These episodes are sponsored by Making Space and Level Access, powered by AW360, Advertising Week's year-round content platform.
On the show today, what came next for Miguel Neiva? Miguel is the founder of colorblind language ColorADD. Its creation was motivated by a time in his childhood where he was hospitalized, and he also had experiences of feeling excluded. Today, we chat about the partnership between ColorADD and Mattel, making the #1 selling card game Uno accessible and inclusive for people in the colorblind community.
Miguel often talks about how 90% of today's communication is based on visual or graphic aids, many of which are color-based. And that can make essential services like public transportation or activities like gaming inaccessible to those who are colorblind. But the case for colorblind accessibility is beyond just social impact. Brands that prioritize colorblind accessibility are unlocking a 350 million person market. These are consumers with the purchasing power and the desire to use your products and services. Gail, thank you so much for joining us. So to kick us off, could you tell us about ColorADD and how your experiences in the hospital and growing up have influenced ColorADD's conception?
Oh yes, of course. It's a great pleasure to be here. But before to explain ColorADD, I have here a little challenge to you and to Dana. Please tell me, you can identify the colors you can see here. For example, this one,
Black,
black, this the other
Green.
one, green, this one,
Blue, navy blue.
and also this one,
I'd say that one's
Green.
giving a green as well, yeah.
and the last one,
Light blue.
light blue. You don't have doubt, correctly?
I feel
I
very
imagine that
confident.
you spend a lot of seconds to try to identify the correct color, but in fact, this is the real colors. I use this small provocation to explain what we are talking about, the color blindness, because color blindness is an invisible handicap. And I'm a graphic designer, and my interesting designer appears perhaps very early in my age. When I was 10 years of age, I was sick for several months, and I have to find something to entertain myself. And I became my passions through designer and drawing a lot of things. And I decide someday I want to be a designer. Nowadays, I'm a graphic designer, and I always imagine design can be more than develop beautiful objects, design beautiful brands. I believe that designs can create a better world. And colorblindness appears because, as a designer, the color is an important tool to identify the color for develop something. And when I thought that nothing exists, the society forgot that exists 350 million people who don't see the correct colors, and we live in a world when the color is an important fact of identification, choose or choice. I decided to come back to the university and develop a research to create something that can be guaranteed the social integration of colorblind people. We are talking 1 in 12 men is colorblind, 1 in 200 female is also colorblind. And the society forgot. It's incredible. The society forgot that exist people who confuse colors, but the colorblind people don't ask for help. Why? Because they don't like to assume their conditions. And the process became an incredible challenge. I decided to make something that can guarantee that colorblind people, in a rational fact, can identify the correct colors, because we use the color in our daily life to take the metro line, to choose the correct shirt to dress, to use the correct pencil to paint, etc., etc. And after testing and working with colorblind people from several countries to understand how they live, what solution they have to guarantee the social integration, I thought that the colorblind people confuse the colors, but they understand the shapes. And if they understand the shapes, I decide to rescue the whole knowledge that all of us bring from school. I don't have doubt. I'm here in Portugal or you in the United States. When we are young, we learn with a little box of inks. And the professor said, this is the primary colors and the black and white. And with these 5 colors, we can make all the colors, the secondary colors, etc., etc. And as I said, if colorblind people don't identify the colors, but they understand the shapes, for each one of these colors, I develop a graphic symbol. Graphic symbols want to be understood for anyone in any place in the world, and easy to represent in different supports or the different dimensions, but most important, easy to mix each others. By the same way, we can mix the yellow and the red to obtain the orange, and the color red is something very easy. 3 symbols, 3 graphic symbols, and the mix of the symbols can guarantee that colorblind people can identify all the colors. Of course, they don't see them, but they need to understand where is the red line in a metro, where is the yellow pencil to paint the sun, etc., etc. The process become like a mental game, because it's also to rescue the whole knowledge that all of us bring from schools, and the colorblind people look for this solution as like a mental game. If I can understand the concept of the color addictions, I can identify the colors, the rational way to identify the colors. And the color is it's something like this. And nowadays we are working for implementing this solution.
I want to quickly share, Miguel, what you shared on the screen. So if someone is listening to this or watching this podcast and they are blind or low vision, what you had held up on the screen while you were talking about this system that you've created is a color wheel. It's a bit of like a Venn diagram version of a color wheel. And then on each of the different color areas, there was a unique symbol. So like a triangle or a triangle with like a
Yes.
rectangle. So I think that that's the very important to really explain when you talk about accessibility and inclusion is that not everyone can perceive color, or they don't perceive color the same way. So the system that you developed is a symbol system that helps people differentiate color by not using color alone, but by then adding these symbols. So with that, I was really curious, why do you think it was important to Mattel to create a colorblind accessible Uno deck? And sort of the follow-up on that, and why do you think Uno specifically?
Yes, this is a good question, because ColorADD is already in use in several products cross-sector in several countries. There are at this moment millions of products with the ColorADD. And of course, the major brands have the responsibility and the ability to create a positive global impact. And I don't have doubt, Mattel is, for me, when I researched and developed the solution, is the perfect match, because it's the most important game in the world. And the color is very important to understand if I can play or not that game. And if you want to be inclusive, we have to create the solutions, not to create games for the people with limitations or disability, but also, and for me, it's better to create solution that the same support, the same product, the same game can be played for anyone in the world. And of course, if you look for the cards of the Uno, the color is essential to play the game, not only the numbers, but the colors. And in 2017, we received the contact by Mattel to introduce the ColorADD code in the game. And of course, we had strongly aligned after the interesting contact by Mattel and became clear that we are shared the same purpose, make the color accessible for all. And of course, the impact of ColorADD, the version of ColorADD code UNO in 2017, and there is interesting impact in the worldwide, not only because they present our symbols in the cards, but also to make all the childs, all the families, all the players who know to know the ColorADD code better than in their daily life, because this solution is not only for the games but cross sectors. The Smithsonian Design Museum in New York make an exhibitions when the ColorADD is part of the exhibitions, prove that it's possible to introduce small increments in the products to make them become more inclusive and create more market. For instance, in 2017, the Mattel Uno with the ColorADD increased the sales of that game in more 66%. And the impact is incredible for all of us, not only for ColorADD, because we can spread this language worldwide, but also for the Mattel, and in the most important for us, for the society, because become more inclusive for all.
Did Mattel come to you? Did they find you, or did you have to connect with them and pitch them this idea of colorblind accessible Uno?
No, in 2016, Mattel contacted us because they know ColorADD code through the internet, I imagine. But it's curious because in 2011, after I finished my research, after I we guaranteed recognition of ColorADD as a universal language, we tried to contact Mattel because I believe this is the major brand, the real impact. And after 4 years, 2016, we received the contact by Mattel with Reddy Heidler and their team. And we developed this solution and this game. And after also a few years late, Mattel not only put on the market a small packaging with the code, and after some years after, a premium production of this game, what make us understand that this is the perfect match that I imagined few years ago. And nowadays we have the ColorADD code in several countries, and we working with the kids in the schools, and all of them recognize the code because they saw the symbols in the Uno deck.
So you had mentioned the sales success of the deck once it hit the market, but when you started working with Mattel, were there any success metrics that were presented at the beginning of the project? Did they set any sort of goals of what success would look like? Did they have any expectations on how this would do?
I imagine yes, but most than their impact in the sales, I imagine, and this is my vision, they want to be part of the solutions. I believe that if you want to create a better world, it's not a work for one only person or one only company. It's the work that we have to make together because it's important to make all of us be part of the solution. And the impact of ColorADD Uno in 2017 more than increased their sales, the more than put the Uno deck in the exhibition in the Smithsonian Design Museum. They receive a strong social media recognition and the impact. And the idea, and we share this information with Mattel in that time, in the beginning of the partnership, together we want to be we have to guarantee the capacity to spread worldwide this language, not only for the game sectors, of course, but the daily life, to guarantee that it's possible a colorblind people living their day with independence. They don't need to help the others to choose something when the color is important.
Yeah, it's such a great opportunity for a company to be truly an industry leader. I'm wondering, were there any challenges when you were implementing ColorADD? Did you face any pushback or anything that you had to navigate?
When we work with our partners to guarantee the correct integration or implementation, the ColorADD code, we have a simple principle in the process. It's guaranteed that the inclusion of ColorADD is a non-intrusive solution, guarantee that the image of the product, of the image of the supports, the image of our partners continue to be the same. The ColorADD is a non-intrusive solution, appears when the color is important, but nothing more to guarantee that they have to transmit what color transmit. And I give you an example. The Rubik Cube, the symbols are there. We have a lot of different supports, and it's important to guarantee that the brands don't have to change their image, but the code complement the image only when the color is important. For us, I'm not colorblind, but for the colorblind people also, to make the product more inclusive for all.
And how did you bring the colorblind community into the design and kind of promotion process?
Yes, of course, since of the beginning, have the colorblind people near from us because it's important. The product, the ColorADD language, this solution is made for colorblind people. Every situation when we have to guarantee the correct implementation, we contact the colorblind people to make them be part of the focus group to understand if this solution, this implementation in reality means access for all of them, not only for the games, but in the transports. We work with several public transports companies because the lines have colors. We try to guarantee the correct implementation of the code because they need to understand where is the red, the green, the blue line or the yellow line with the self-independence, but guarantee, as I said, this is a non-intrusive solutions. Our main purpose is guarantee that all the people can understand the same object, the same product, the colorblind or the non-colorblind people. And of course, the Mattel is the same. A person with a normal vision can play the game and they don't need to feel intrusive the symbols. No, the symbols are there in the correct dimension for all can understand them. But it's interesting because in the schools, when we work with the kids in the primary schools, all of them, of course, play Uno. And all of them, I know the symbol, this symbol represents the blue because I saw in my Uno, the symbol are there. Is a good way to teaching the code for the next generations, the childs.
I love that so much. I think a common misconception is that accessibility and design are at odds with each other. People think that accessibility will make products maybe clunky or visually unappealing, but we really see it as a driver of innovation. And it doesn't have to be clunky or ugly. It can be beautiful and visually appealing. So I'm wondering how and if you faced any questions around that specifically. And I'm also wondering if there were any aspects of the accessibility implementation process that you think make the design just better for everyone.
As a designer, I thought the designer have the responsibility, the good responsibility to make the products more accessible for all. And exists the idea that if you are trying to put this object more inclusive, you are changing the beautiful of the object. I don't believe. I believe that if you want to assume the concept of design, the universal design, the design for all, they can be they have to be understand for all the people. And this is not a small symbol or a small information that make the product less beautiful. No, I think it's more beautiful. And we have the example with Mattel. When, as I said, Mattel launched on the market the ColorADD Uno in 2017, the impact it was incredible. In 2019, the Mattel created a version with the Braille. It's interesting, makes the impact, generate the impact through the products, not only to make them more inclusive, to promote the social impact, but also the economical impact. It's possible to work together to promote the common good and sell products. I think this is the most democratic way to guarantee that the same product give the opportunity to more people, in the case of the games, play together we don't have to need help or to be outside of the game because I can identify the colors. It's very, very motivated, all of this process.
Yeah. So, Miguel, I myself can definitely connect with your perspective because I'm a designer as well. It's really reassuring when I hear a fellow designer reinforce something that I say all the time, which is that accessibility and inclusion is the job of designers. And when people say, oh, like Keely had mentioned, we're concerned that accessibility might make it clunky or ugly or too simple. I think this really demonstrates that's just not the case. And when I talk to people about the designer's role in accessibility, I often say that I've never met a designer who, when I tell them this thing that you created, whether it's a physical product or a digital product, someone who they intended to create the product for can't use it. That is often a very straightforward unlock for any designer that I've met. So I'm really happy to hear you kind of reinforce that. But what I'm really curious about is I also know what motivates me as a designer, and it's really creating products that people love and they love to use. Are there any stories that you heard from consumers once this product, or players, I should say, in this case, that were out in the market? Or was there anything that, anyone ever shared with you that really connected or kind of made you feel as a designer, like we did it, we've accomplished our goal?
Yes, I totally agree. I think that the good design is always inclusive, and the integration of inclusive solutions in the products, like for example, the Uno deck, become the product more functional without losing their personality. They don't need to lose the personality of the product. They become a product for more people, and this is universal design. And if you ask me if I imagine that one day when I decide to create 5 symbols to guarantee that the colorblind people can identify all the colors. But as I said, if you ask me if I imagine one day have this language spread for worldwide in big products like Uno or in the metros in several countries when more than 35 million colorblind people per year can use this inclusive solution with independence, I never imagined. But I only developed 5 symbols. And this is very interesting. I usually said we work in partnership in co-creation model with our partners, and the people of marketing, of the finance usually said this is a win-win relationship. No, we think that we have to introduce another win in the questions. Win, win, win. Win for us because we can spread the ColorADD worldwide. Win for our partners because they can create the position of the brands, make them products more stronger, more innovative, and the increased value of the brands. And of course, the third win, the society, because become more inclusive society. The first implementation of ColorADD is in 2010. We are working, because it's not myself, it's we are a team work the implementation of ColorADD in worldwide in different sectors. We receive a lot of messages, emails, the commentaries from people with color blindness to tell us now I can identify the colors, now I can dress the correct shirt. Or even an example, when female from, I think, Brazil, she sent me an email and she told me, all days I feel my job in danger because my boss sent me a Word file and said, now the contract is already correct. Everything that I put in green is to introduce. Everything that I put in red is to take out. And she confused. She doesn't understand the difference between the red and green. And this is something that motivates a lot of us to continue all the process. And of course, not only us, but the partners, because they understand that ColorADD can be part of a more inclusive world. and spread this process by the worldwide. And in the sector of games, for example, the partnership that we made with Mattel, with this Uno, generated the effect Me Too. Nowadays, we work with several companies of games in the world, more than 62 different games for several companies, and all of them use the ColorADD code because they thought the impact that this solution, this is small solution, this is a non-intrusive solution, have in the game like Uno, the most popular game in the world, and they thought this is the solution. We have to make also this part together and create more impact, because the idea is in the future is ColorADD is completely implemented in the daily life in the several products by the same way that we have the traffic signs in the streets or we have the washing instructions in our clothes.
And often, when products and spaces are made accessible for disabled people, they often also become more accessible for other groups as well, which is what we call the curb cut effect, which originated from when curb cuts were created for wheelchair users on sidewalks, that then made it more accessible for parents with strollers, travelers with luggage, and many other groups. Are there any use cases for colorblind accessibility with the Uno deck that also made it accessible to other groups that may have surprised you along the way?
It's also for all the people because become, as I said, a mental game. And the positive way of this solution, like a mental game or a non-intrusive solution, make us to work and develop solution for another kind of issues or disability. For example, we are work with a textiles company. When we introduce the symbols in the label, the color of symbols in the clothes, to guarantee that the colorblind people can, with self-independence, understand this is a light blue. But the symbol is with three-dimension production to guarantee that the blind people also can identify the colors. And the universality of ColorADD is not only for different language, because they can be understood here in Portugal or United States, in China, in Germany, or in South Korea, but also to guarantee that they can be understood for the major of population who can need to identify the correct colors. And the impact for us is incredible because the capacity to create more solutions, to become the solution more inclusive for all with the same support, the same symbol, the same color representation, is the work that we are doing, of course, since of the beginning, co-creation of our partners, because they have a lot to learn with them because they know better than us their clients. And I give you another examples. In the malls, when you parking your car, the layouts of in the malls is the color is the first fact. We have a lot of malls in the world, of course more than here in Europe, but when you put the car is in the yellow zone or in green zone or in red zones, the symbol are there to guarantee that a man, and majority we are talking men's 1 in 12, and the man is that guy don't want to stop to ask. They need to feel the self-independence. And it's incredible because they can understand, and with self-independence, they don't lose the autoconfidence, because if you lose your car in a parking, you have to spend a lot of time to find them. Or if I'm talking about malls, but I can tell you, talking about the hospitals, the bracelet they put in your arm when you go to the hospitals is made through the colors, and you need to understand what is the color of my bracelet, or where is the line to give me to leave me for a different service inside in hospitals. And with the same language, the same code, the colorblind people can wake up in the morning and make all the daily life with the same solutions and guarantee the self-independence.
Yeah. So I'm actually really thinking about the question you just asked, Keely. And I think it's worth noting that the ColorADD system is a global universal language. And that makes something come to mind for me, which is people with cognitive disabilities. Because this is a universal symbol system, I think, when you use the example of the application in textiles within the shirt label, or again, it's used outside of just the game, allowing people to learn this universal language of these color symbols. And then that same repetition of symbols is used across so many different mediums. But I think it's a really interesting conversation to the value and benefit of using a global unified system, because then for those with cognitive disabilities, that's a language perhaps someone's already learned, they're familiar with, and then they can apply that knowledge to lots of different things, whether it's their parking spot or a game that they're playing with their friends or
Yeah.
family. So I think that's super powerful.
Yes, and you referred textiles, colors of textiles. 92% of the colorblind people need help to buy clothes, for example. 61% need help in home to choose the color of the shirts to dress in the morning. And the idea is also to spread the universal language for the different geographies, but also cross sectors, of course, how the people can learn the language. The color race nowadays is already teaching in schools in some countries. The young childs learning the code in the schools, because the code is used in the school manuals to teaching the code, but also to explain different material in the classes, like maths or language or geography or history. The color is relevant, and through the communication of our partners, as Mattel made, and they have an incredible impact, as I said. But the communication that our partners made to promote the partnership, to use the code in their products, make all the people in their daily life to understand the code, and of course the complementary in the schools for the young childs.
So, Keely, I know you have a really important question for Miguel, but before you get to it, one more question that comes to mind, which is, Miguel, Mattel obviously were early adopters of this colorblind accessibility. As a result of the work that you've done with Mattel, has that opened the conversation with other game companies for colorblind accessibility?
Yes, of course. As I said, more than 62 games from several brands, in not only for the physical but also for the digital games, use the ColorADD. And some examples: the Studio Bombix, the Matago, Asmodee, several big brands also. They look for the example that we made with Mattel, and they decide to execute the idea. If they use and they generate the impact, we want to use too. The early adopters, as the big brands like Mattel, give for the future partners the confidence that is something that already consolidate in the worldwide, and they want to adopt also the process. And this is very, very interesting, because even the competitors, when the subject is inclusions, they look for the competitors not only for, like in the sports, the rival, but something that they want to be side by side and together make a more inclusive world for all. And this is very motivated for us. Sometimes we are the pivot in the process, and you put some competitors. And for example, in the transports companies is incredible, because the good practice created by Metro of Lisbon or Metro of Ireland or in Norway, they make Metro of Madrid adopt also the ColorADD code in their diagram. And that make believe that if all of us are the right side, certainly we have a better future for the future.
I think that is a perfect segue into our last question, which is a question that we like to ask all of our guests. What comes next? What would you like to see come next when it comes to gaming and colorblind accessibility?
What I would like to see, Kelly, not only in the game, but in every situation when the color is an important fact of identification, choose orientation or choice, give the self-independence of colorblind people. Of course, we'd like to see the society where the colorblind people can make their day with self-independence. They don't need to ask for help. And this is what the work that we are doing. And in my vision, we don't have to run against the time. We have to use the time to consolidate the good practice. And if you live in a global world, I imagine to continue to saw the continued expansion of ColorADD for multiple sectors, and inclusion must be built for everyone and for everyone. And for me, it's very important. And all this process is impossible to make them alone. It needs someone to make the path together. And the truly success of all of these things will come when the inclusion is no longer a news. It's just normal when we don't have to talking about the inclusive products, the accessibility products. When all the products become inclusive for anyone, this process, I think this is perfect for all of us. And I don't have doubt. I imagine that color can be for all, and the work that we are doing, and have to thanks to you for the invitation and the opportunity to share of what we are doing with ColorADD is important platform to share what we are doing. And I believe that someday ColorADD is spread worldwide, definitely.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thanks for checking out the What Comes Next podcast, sponsored by Making Space and Level Access, powered by AW360, Advertising Week's year-round content platform. Subscribe now so you never miss an episode on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are available.